What if I told you that before Jim Jones and the Jonestown massacre, there was another cult leader who perfected the playbook? A man who claimed to be God, controlled thousands of followers, and yet, history barely remembers his name. His name was Father Divine. And his story is absolutely wild. In today's video, we're diving deep into the Peace Mission movement, a religious organization that walked the line between revolutionary social movement and dangerous cult. We're talking about a man who literally renamed himself God. Thousands of followers who gave up everything. Connections to the civil rights movement. And yes, the direct link to Jim Jones himself. This is a story you probably never heard in history class. So let's get into it. Here's the thing about Father Divine, almost everything about his early life is shrouded in mystery. And that wasn't by accident. He wanted it that way. Whenever people asked him basic questions like, "Where were you born?" or "When's your birthday?" he'd respond with cryptic answers like, "God has no mother." Okay, weird flex, but alright. What historians believe is this. Father Divine was likely born George Baker Jr. in May 1879 in Rockville, Maryland. He was born to formerly enslaved parents during one of the most racist periods in American history. His father was a farm laborer. His mother, Nancy, worked as a domestic servant until health issues made work impossible. Young George had to drop out of school to support the family. The Baker family was deeply religious. George spent his childhood surrounded by Sunday school, prayer meetings, Bible study multiple times a week. Church wasn't just religion, it was survival. It was community. It was escape from the harsh realities of being black in post-Civil War Maryland. In 1897, tragedy struck. George's mother Nancy passed away. But here's where it gets dark. Her death became a public spectacle because of her size. She required a special coffin, and the local community treated it like entertainment. Imagine being a young man grieving your mother and watching people turn her death into gossip and spectacle. This had to have affected George deeply. Some historians believe his later obsession with denying death itself stemmed from this trauma. At age 20, George had had enough. He packed up and left Rockville for Baltimore, Maryland. In Baltimore, George found work quickly. But more importantly, he found his calling. He started visiting different churches, watching preachers, studying their techniques. One day at a small church, he got his chance. He stepped up to preach. And people listened. He was engaging, passionate, electric. He commanded the room in a way that surprised everyone, including himself. And he loved it, the attention, the power, the influence. But George didn't just repeat traditional sermons. He started mixing things up, cherry-picking ideas from different religions and philosophies. His biggest obsession? Something called New Thought. New Thought was basically the 1900s version of the law of attraction. The core beliefs were: your mind controls your reality. Positive thinking can physically heal you. God exists within all people. If you channel God's spirit, your problems disappear. Sound familiar? That's because this philosophy is still popular today in self-help culture. George started preaching something that really upset people: the concept of race mind. He literally told audiences, mostly black Americans experiencing daily racism, segregation, and violence, that race only exists if you have negative thoughts about it. Imagine being told race doesn't exist when you're not allowed in most parts of the city. When lynchings are happening without consequences. When you face discrimination every single day. People were not having it. His tour across the United States flopped hard. But then, something pivotal happened. In 1907, a man named Samuel Morris showed up at George's church. During the service, Samuel stood up, turned to the congregation, and declared, "I am the Father Eternal." He was claiming to be God. Security literally threw him out. Everyone was horrified. Except George. George was fascinated. He thought, this guy has balls. George tracked down Samuel outside and they hit it off. Samuel revealed his real name was Father Jehovah. He'd renamed himself after reading a Bible verse that convinced him he was God. The verse? 1 Corinthians 3 verse 16. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? Samuel interpreted this literally, and George was intrigued. The two started preaching together in Baltimore, attracting about 20 followers. George renamed himself the Messenger. At first this worked. Samuel was God, and George was his messenger. But as their following grew, George wasn't satisfied being number two. George turned on Samuel. He declared that Father Jehovah was not the true expression of Christ. Then he made his move. You can stay with him, or come with me. Most of the followers went with George. He'd stolen his mentor's entire congregation. By 1912, George was traveling across the South, but this time with a new message. He was God in human form. His followers gave him a new name, Reverend Major Jealous Divine. Jealous? Yes. It comes from Bible verses like Exodus 34 verse 14. For the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. Eventually, everyone just called him Father Divine. As his following grew, Father Divine established strict rules. Absolutely no sex, even if you're married. No alcohol, drugs, smoking, or gambling. No bad language. Men and women couldn't talk except for business. All money earned goes to the movement. Cut off your family completely. Oh, and one more thing, he'd give you a new name. And these names were interesting. Actual examples: Heavenly Bouquet, Peace Determination, Gracious Lamb. Imagine introducing yourself as Gracious Lamb at a job interview. By 1917, Father Divine realized the South had limited potential. So he moved his operation to New York City, specifically Harlem and Brooklyn. Timing was everything. These areas were filled with people living in poverty, many homeless. Father Divine offered housing, food, jobs, community, and people were desperate enough to accept the strict rules in exchange. Father Divine met a woman named Penina who suffered from severe arthritis. He claimed to heal her instantly. Shortly after, they got married. Wait, married? Didn't he ban sex? Apparently, their marriage was purely symbolic, a representation of God's love. Looking at photos, Penina was significantly older and gave off major motherly vibes. Given that Father Divine lost his mother young, this makes psychological sense. Penina became known as Mother Divine, and all followers were their children. One of the most famous aspects of the Peace Mission movement was their weekly feasts, the Holy Communion banquets. These weren't just for members. They were open to anyone in need. Twice a day, Father Divine provided free, elaborate meals to thousands of people. Historical footage shows these events. Everyone looks genuinely happy, well-fed, and grateful. For many people during the Great Depression, these banquets were life-saving. Building an empire. Father Divine used the money from followers to buy entire apartment buildings in Harlem, small businesses throughout Brooklyn, barbershops, restaurants, grocery stores, dry cleaners. The genius part? He instructed followers to charge as little as possible. Every business had a sign saying, "Thank you, Father Divine." These weren't just affordable, they provided jobs to black workers when most places refused to hire them. To the people of Harlem, Father Divine was a hero. But not everyone saw Father Divine as a hero. During the 1920s, many black leaders were encouraging black Americans to embrace their racial identity rather than trying to assimilate. Father Divine's teaching that race doesn't exist was seen as dismissive and harmful. Despite this, he eventually got involved politically. In 1940, the Peace Mission movement gathered 250,000 signatures for an anti-lynching bill. While the bill failed, it helped pave the way for future legislation. In 1931, Father Divine moved to Sayville, Long Island, a wealthy white neighborhood. The residents were furious. A rich black man with hundreds of followers moving in? They tried everything to kick him out. Eventually, they arrested him for being a public nuisance. The charge? His weekly banquets caused too much traffic. The trial was a circus. The judge clearly had it out for Father Divine and influenced the jury. Father Divine was found guilty and sentenced to 1 year in prison. But then something bizarre happened. Just days after sentencing, the 50-year-old judge, who was reportedly healthy, dropped dead from a sudden heart attack. When reporters asked Father Divine about it, he replied, "I hated to do it." What? Father Divine wasn't involved in the death, but he milked it for everything it was worth. To his followers, this was proof he was God. His conviction was overturned. He was released. And his following exploded. Before the arrest, Father Divine had a few thousand followers. After, over 3.5 million followers worldwide. The media attention worked like modern-day, going viral. People read about him in newspapers, got curious, checked out his teachings, and many joined. There were eventually 134 Peace Mission Movement locations across the United States and more internationally. The timing couldn't have been better for Father Divine. It was the 1930s, the Great Depression. Banks were failing. People were losing everything. But Father Divine had always told followers to never put money in banks, give it to the movement instead. When the banks collapsed, his followers hadn't lost a penny. To them, this was prophetic. He protected them. He knew what was coming. Their faith was validated. Father Divine attracted some wealthy followers too. One was John Hunt from a rich Los Angeles family. John was an alcoholic who'd been married multiple times. He said Father Divine's teachings turned his life around. He stopped drinking, took a vow of celibacy, and funded millions of dollars worth of properties and businesses for the movement's California branch. Everything seemed to be going perfectly. But of course, darkness was lurking beneath the surface. Remember John Hunt, the wealthy follower? Well, he ended up committing a horrific crime. While working for the movement in Denver, Colorado, John met a 17-year-old girl named Delight. He groomed her, convinced her she was the new Virgin Mary, and told her she would give birth to a new Jesus. Then he assaulted her. Multiple times. Feeling guilty, John confessed to Father Divine. But instead of reporting it to police, Father Divine simply relocated both of them to different mission locations. When Delight's parents finally tracked her down, she'd been completely brainwashed. She insisted she was Mary Dove now and was going to give birth to Jesus. Eventually, Delight confessed to her parents what had happened. They were furious, but they saw an opportunity. They tried to blackmail Father Divine, knowing that John Hunt was a wealthy white man who wouldn't face consequences. The scandal would fall on Father Divine instead. But Father Divine refused to pay. The family took their story to newspaper mogul William Randolph Hearst. Hearst's campaign. Hearst hated Father Divine and jumped at the chance to destroy him. He published salacious headlines painting the entire peace mission movement as a front for predators. John Hunt was eventually convicted and jailed. But the damage to Father Divine's reputation was done. Then came Faithful Mary. She'd been a poster child for the movement, a former addict who'd found recovery through Father Divine's teachings. She even ran her own mission branch in New Jersey. But when her location was offered a $10,000 donation, Father Divine refused it. He never accepted outside money because he wanted to appear self-sustaining. Mary took the donation anyway, investing half in the mission and pocketing half. When Father Divine found out, he told her to return it. She refused. He kicked her out. Furious after dedicating a decade to the movement, Mary went to Hearst with an exposé. She revealed that Father Divine secretly accepted cash from followers every week. The money funded his lavish lifestyle, designer suits, custom Rolls-Royces, exotic vacations. The movement was not celibate, homosexual activities were happening. Father Divine himself had sex with many female followers, including her. She called him a religious gigolo masquerading as God, and the Rasputin of America. Mary sold stories about Father Divine for years, making a fortune and paving the way for other women to come forward. Amid all these scandals, Father Divine's wife Penina died. The weird part? Father Divine didn't acknowledge her death for years. Why? Because he'd always taught that if you followed his rules, you'd live forever. Her death contradicted everything he preached. Plus, Father Divine himself was terrified. He truly believed he wouldn't die. Penina's death forced him to confront his own mortality. The new wife. Father Divine dealt with this by marrying a 21-year-old Canadian woman named Edna Rose Richings in 1946. He was in his 60s. Edna became the new Mother Divine. Father Divine saw her as pure and devoted enough to carry on the mission after his death. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, the movement battled constant scandals, usually sex-related or about financial mismanagement. But they stayed afloat because the movement was genuinely unique and had helped so many people. By the 1960s, Father Divine stopped making public appearances. Behind closed doors, everyone knew he had serious health problems, specifically diabetes. But no one could acknowledge it. His whole philosophy was that positive thinking heals disease better than doctors. There's heartbreaking footage of Edna bringing Father Divine to public gatherings near the end. He clearly wasn't there mentally. He couldn't speak. His followers desperately tried to use positive thinking to heal him. It didn't work. On September 10, 1965, at age 86, Father Divine passed away. Side note: he lived to 86 with diabetes without supposedly seeing doctors? He had to have been secretly taking insulin, right? There's no other explanation. His followers were genuinely shocked. They truly believed this day would never come. Edna, now Mother Divine, took over the movement. Membership declined significantly, but a solid base of followers remained. They continued worshiping because they believed Father Divine would return reincarnated. They kept his bedroom pristine. They washed and folded his laundry regularly. Just in case. Sound familiar? This is exactly what Scientology does with L. Ron Hubbard's belongings. Now here's where it gets absolutely wild. In the 1970s, a man showed up to a Holy Communion banquet and declared, "I'm the reincarnation of Father Divine." That man? Jim Jones. Yes, that Jim Jones. Jonestown Jim Jones. For years, Jim Jones had studied Father Divine from afar. He observed how he bought buildings and ran businesses, how he kept followers loyal, his organizational structure, his methods of control. Jim Jones took notes on everything. When Father Divine died, Jim saw an opportunity. He thought he could take over the movement. Mother Divine immediately shut it down. She knew he wasn't Father Divine reincarnated. She asked him to leave. But Jim Jones came back with empty buses, offering Peace Mission members a new start in his movement. Some went with him. Most stayed. If you know the Jonestown story, you can see the similarities. Opening businesses and caring for people. Appearing humble while maintaining control. Demanding absolute loyalty. Cutting off families. Controlling finances. Father Divine gave Jim Jones the blueprint. Jim Jones took it and went horrifically wrong, leading to the deaths of over 900 people in 1978. Mother Divine ran the Peace Mission movement until her death in 2017 at age 91. And believe it or not, the movement still exists today as the International Peace Mission Movement. Some followers still believe Father Divine will return through the power of positive thinking. So, was Father Divine a cult leader or a civil rights hero? Honestly, both. On one hand, he provided housing, food, and jobs to thousands during the Great Depression. Opened affordable businesses when Black Americans were systematically excluded from the economy. Contributed to civil rights efforts. Created genuine community for marginalized people. On the other hand, he declared himself God and demanded worship. Controlled every aspect of followers' lives. Took their money while living lavishly. Separated families. Covered up sexual abuse. Broke his own rules about celibacy. It checks every cult checklist. Charismatic leader claims divinity, renames followers, demands absolute loyalty, isolates members from families, controls finances, leader doesn't follow own rules. Here's what's important to understand. People don't join cults. They join good things that become cults. Father Divine offered real help to desperate people. The food was real. The housing was real. The community was real. That's what makes this story so complicated. And honestly, that's what makes it so dangerous. When we dismiss cult members as stupid or crazy, we miss the point. These were normal people who joined something that genuinely helped them, until it didn't. The line between religious movement and cult is often blurry. Father Divine's story shows us exactly how that line gets crossed. What do you think? Was Father Divine a visionary who helped thousands? Or a manipulative cult leader? Or somehow both? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more forgotten history. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.